The world was stunned when President Donald Trump unleashed a declaration that few could have predicted. Ukraine, he said, can and should win the war and reclaim every inch of its land from Russian control. Trump didn't stop there. In a fiery post on Truth Social, he declared that with European and NATO backing, Ukraine could fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form, adding emphatically that this is the time for Ukraine to act. He even ridiculed Russia's military as a paper tiger, a devastating insult aimed squarely at the Kremlin's sense of power and prestige. Trump argued that a true major military power would have overrun Ukraine quickly and decisively. Yet Russia has slogged through 3.5 costly years of fighting with little to show for its efforts. This shocking statement shatters years of Trump's own calls for land swaps and compromises, replacing them with a fiery confidence in Ukraine's strength and a stinging public humiliation of Vladimir Putin. For a leader once known for urging negotiated settlements, this sudden reversal carries explosive consequences that could shake diplomatic circles from Washington to Moscow and far beyond. It is not merely a change in rhetoric, it signals a dramatic new chapter in a conflict that has gripped the globe, cost countless lives, and tested alliances like never before. Could this be the turning point that reshapes the entire conflict and forces Russia to confront a reality it has long denied? Before we dive into the full story, make sure you subscribe to the African Web and ring the notification bell so you never miss powerful updates on global politics and Africa's role in shaping the world. Trump's new stance did not appear overnight or in isolation. His change of heart reflects the undeniable collapse of Russia's war strategy and the growing power of Ukraine's defense, a transformation visible to anyone watching the grinding war of attrition unfold over the past several years. Russia's economy is buckling under the weight of relentless sanctions, a plummeting ruble, and soaring prices for basic goods that once seemed secure. Long fuel lines now snake through major cities. The once prized National Wealth Fund is shrinking at an alarming rate, and a weary public grows increasingly frustrated by endless military spending that drains household incomes and national reserves alike. Even Moscow's attempts to mask these problems through propaganda are wearing thin as ordinary citizens feel the impact in their daily lives. At the same time, Ukraine's resilience has transformed the battlefield in ways that would have seemed impossible when the invasion began. What started as a desperate struggle against a much larger foe has evolved into a campaign marked by innovation, strategic brilliance, and sheer determination. Ukrainian forces have mastered drone warfare to devastating effect, developed a domestic missile industry capable of rivaling some of the world's best and fine-tuned tactics that consistently outwit and outmaneuver Russian troops. Every new skirmish seems to reveal yet another Russian vulnerability, eroding the myth of invincibility that once surrounded the Kremlin's forces. Backed by massive support from Europe and NATO, including advanced weaponry, generous funding, intensive training programs, and steady humanitarian aid, Kyiv has steadily closed the gap in manpower and firepower. Trump, observing these undeniable changes and consulting with key allies, recognized that Ukraine is no longer merely surviving. It is capable of turning the tide and winning outright, a conclusion that underscores his dramatic shift in perspective and the gravity of the moment. Trump's own words on Truth Social were unmistakable and impossible to ignore. He declared that with European and NATO backing, Ukraine could fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form, adding emphatically that this is the time for Ukraine to act. He went further still, ridiculing Russia's military as a paper tiger, a devastating insult aimed squarely at the Kremlin's sense of power and prestige. Trump argued that a true major military power would have overrun Ukraine quickly and decisively. Yet Russia has slogged through 3.5 costly years of fighting with little to show for its efforts, exposing its weaknesses to the world. This was far more than simple encouragement. It was a concrete promise of ongoing U.S. involvement. Trump affirmed that America would continue supplying weapons to NATO for Ukraine's use, effectively signaling Washington's unwavering commitment to Kyiv's cause and its determination to keep pressure on Moscow for as long as it takes. His taunt that Ukraine might go further than that even hinted at a possibility once unthinkable: Ukrainian forces striking inside Russia itself to ensure that future aggression is deterred and that Putin's military overreach faces a permanent setback. For Putin, the message could not be clearer. The United States sees Russia's weakness, recognizes Ukraine's growing strength, and is prepared to help Kyiv press its advantage until the original borders are fully restored, and perhaps even beyond. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy welcomed Trump's remarks as a big shift, noting with clear satisfaction that the U.S. leader now understands that territorial concessions are unacceptable and morally indefensible. Zelenskyy pointed out that Putin's repeated lies to Trump helped change the American president's view, hardening his resolve to stand firmly with Kyiv and reject any settlement that rewards aggression. This endorsement of full Ukrainian sovereignty electrified Ukrainian forces, already pushing back along the front lines and retaking ground in key regions like Donetsk, where Russian troops have struggled for months to capture even a single city, despite relentless assaults and heavy losses. The implications for global diplomacy are immense and cannot be overstated. Trump's call for stronger NATO involvement, heavier tariffs on Russia, and even penalties for countries like China and India that continue buying Russian oil could tighten the economic noose around Moscow and accelerate its financial decline. European nations, too, face renewed pressure to end their dependence on Russian energy and to step up military and humanitarian support for Ukraine in unprecedented ways. Leaders from Berlin to Brussels are now reevaluating their strategies, realizing that Trump's statement has raised the stakes and signaled that the West's commitment is deepening, not fading. Putin, once confident of a quick victory, now confronts a coalition more united and determined than ever, while his own citizens grapple with shortages and economic instability that show no sign of easing. Trump's stunning declaration has redrawn the map of expectations for the war in Ukraine and injected fresh energy into the fight for sovereignty. By publicly ridiculing Russia's faltering military and openly supporting Ukraine's goal to reclaim every inch of its territory, he has signaled a dramatic escalation in U.S. resolve and a challenge to Moscow that cannot be ignored. Will this embolden Ukraine to launch even bolder counterattacks or push Putin toward a desperate new strategy that risks widening the conflict? Could this be the decisive moment that forces the Kremlin to finally seek a lasting peace and acknowledge the limits of its ambitions? Share your thoughts in the comments. Is this the moment that changes everything? For more in-depth coverage of global politics and Africa's growing influence on world events, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The African Web. Stay connected as we continue to bring you the stories, shaping our world, and redefining the balance of power.